Our meeting today is focused on traffic and infrastructure solutions, and the reason for that is because our mission is to drive solutions to common issues for our members with an emphasis on safety performance and workforce development. And it's in that vein, in discussion of workforce development, where we discovered how big of an issue traffic and infrastructure is to our region. Some of the plants were looking at difficulty hiring people, actually having to offer premiums to get people to come to their work site because of the traffic issues. So about the end of 2013, the members approached GBRIA and said, we need to really do something about this. Industry needs to get involved with traffic and infrastructure solutions. So that's why we're here today, to focus on this and to hear from the DOTD Secretary. And we have a showcase of infrastructure and traffic resources for the members to learn more about it. And we hope everyone learns something and we can work on continued solutions.
Today was all about traffic and infrastructure and the problems the plants are having with personnel getting in and out, and also our traffic and trucks and those kind of issues were discussed today. Members have told us that people have quit because they can't take the commute anymore. So they're looking for other jobs. So that's new people, new training, recruitment. That's expensive and you lose that expertise. They've told us that they can't get trucks in and out of the plants during the day. So that's 3 hours, 4 hours of a truck driver's time spent trying to get a load and get out of town. So it takes, and that then reduces how far it can get. GBRIA has partnered with Crisis, Capital Region Industry for Sustainable Infrastructure Solutions, to look at some long-term solutions. And those solutions will be data-driven. So we're looking for not the most popular project, but for the one that will give us the biggest bang for the buck. In other words, what's going to reduce people's commute for the least amount of money. We see it as at least a 2-year project to come up with a list of priorities that industry and the parishes and everyone will buy into for the long term. But how long it takes to actually do those projects is really going to depend on funding and how much funding will be, associated with doing those.
In the past 45 years, what other types of issues has the association focused on?
The other issues that we focused on are a lot of best practices development in the areas of safety. We also do a lot of outreach in the community to help folks understand the jobs that are available, from engineering, accounting, computer technicians, process operators is a big key, and of course the skilled trades, construction trades, which is in big demand right now because of all of the expansion.
My name is Connie Fabry. I'm the GBRIA's Executive Director, and I'd like to thank you today for attending our 2015 annual meeting, where we are celebrating, as you just heard the song, we're celebrating 45 years of paving the way for our members. I hope everyone enjoyed viewing some of the traffic and infrastructure showcase tables in the foyer, and that you received some valuable information or learned something new. I'd like to thank all of the volunteers who helped staff our traffic and infrastructure showcase. We appreciate the time you've taken today to tell our members about your programs. They're all listed on this slide. And if you didn't get a chance before the meeting, I think the booths are probably still set up. Try to have a look on your way out. Each year, our annual meeting and events have grown, and we couldn't do this without a lot of help from our sponsors, so at this time I'd like to thank them. Our ferry sponsors are Air Products, Alon USA, Cajun Industries, Coastal Industries, Honeywell, Ineos Oxide, KBR, Nalco, Occidental Chemical, OMI, Repcon, Safety Pro Resources, and Wilbros Engineers. Our bridge sponsors are GBRIA Construction, the Dow Chemical Company, Excel Group, Formosa Plastics, Georgia Pacific, ISC, James Industrial Constructors, Mosaic Fertilizer, Pala Interstate, SGS Petroleum Services, Shell Chemical, and Turner Industries. And our highway sponsors, who are our premier level sponsors, are Alliance Safety Council, BASF, Brand Energy Solutions, Brock Services, Cajun Industries, Capital Ultrasonics, CB&I, Jacobs, Motiva Enterprises, Performance Contractors, Primoris Services, James Construction, SGS Petroleum Services Corporation, and Triad Electric and Controls. And I'd also like to introduce a couple of our special guests today. Obviously, our keynote speakers will be introduced later, but I'd like to introduce Riley Berthelot, who's parish president with West Baton Rouge. And Stacy Schliwe with Representative Garrett's office. Thank you for coming. And Dennis Decker with the DOTD as well, who's been a tremendous resource for us. John will talk about later. And I'd like to introduce our friends from the Alliance Safety Council. Kathy Trahan is the CEO. Thank y'all. And I would also like to introduce Al Vargas and Robert Cluot with Associated Builders and Contractors, who are very good partners in workforce development. And if I missed anybody, I apologize, because everyone's special.
Well, GBRIA is celebrating our 45th anniversary. GBRIA was formed in 1970 by area plant managers. It was a time very much like today when there was a lot of industrial expansion going on. The managers believed they needed an organization that could speak with one voice on issues regarding workforce development and other areas that would help members' competitiveness. A quote from the letter to the IRS regarding establishment of GBRIA as a tax-exempt organization says, "Industrial complexes must be sure they develop a community of mutual interest, a major one being the importance of being competitive and attractive in order for this economic growth to continue." From that humble beginning, if you will, GBRIA has grown and evolved, taking on a number of additional areas to help our members develop best practices. Our key tenets now include achieve injury and incident-free workplaces, facilitate operational excellence through networking and exchanges, and build support in our local community for retention and growth of our industries. But our primary focus has been from the beginning and continues to be ensure access to a competitive and skilled workforce. We do this by pooling the resources and the experience of our members in areas where we don't compete. In large part, the success of our organization is dependent upon the participation of our members. When our industry is competitive, it is prosperous and it grows. And when it grows, it brings along an entire community, including contractors, suppliers, education providers, restaurants, grocery stores, other professionals, and service sector jobs. Dr. Lawrence Scott's latest estimate is that our industry multiplier has grown to 9 to 1. That is 9 jobs created for every single job created within industry. This is a tremendous impact. And guess what? We're starting to see the effects of that impact right now. And that brings us to today's topic, meeting our most pressing issue, traffic and infrastructure. I hope you enjoy learning more about the needs, ideas, and possibilities for the future of our region. But first, we have some association business to attend to. So I'd like to call to order the 2015 annual meeting of the members of the Greater Baton Rouge Industry Alliance. We have just one item on the agenda today, which is to elect our new slate of the Board of Directors. The slide has the listing. The officer nominations are noted in green. We do have an open spot. So if there's a GBRIA member that would like to be a board member, you put up your hand, we'll put you on the list, and we'll vote on you right now. I'm not seeing any volunteers. Okay. So seeing there are none, we will continue with this slate, and I seek a nomination. I seek a motion to accept this slate. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay. All our guests need to remain quiet while the board members get to vote. Now remember, there's an open slate seat on the board. So if you vote no, you'll be up here. So all in favor? Aye. Opposed? No volunteers. Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank and congratulate all of our new and continuing board members. Your time and dedication to your industry is very much appreciated by all of our members. At this time, I'd like you to take a look inside your programs. I would note our antitrust guidelines, and I would request that members please review these and take their advice when you deal with other members. And if you've got any questions about what you can and can't talk about, we'll be happy to put you in touch with our counsel, who has given us some guidance on a particular issue finally. Okay. The Board of Directors met last fall for our strategic planning session and again confirmed our mission statement and strategic objectives, which are shown here and which we reviewed at our February membership meeting. As I've already mentioned, ensuring access to a competitive and skilled company and contractor workforce remains a top strategic objective. And under this objective, the discussions at the GBRIA meetings turned to traffic and infrastructure issues towards the end of 2013. Area plants were being hit. They reported difficulty in attracting and retaining qualified workers because of long and unpredictable commutes. Commutes that should have taken approximately 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, could at times take up to 2 hours because of snarls on the interstate. Truck drivers were and are expending 30 to 40% of their drivable hours just getting in and out of the plants. So there's new rules about truck driving. If you haven't heard them, you get limited hours, you have to take a break. If you spend 3 or 4 hours getting to and from your load just to get started, you've got 7 hours of driving time left. It makes it very, very difficult to get where you're going in 7 hours. GBRIA began a working group to discuss traffic and infrastructure solutions that could be implemented in a short time span. We looked at 2 years. We appreciate all the people who have helped make our working group and meetings a success, including representatives from other GBRIA members, from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, from the Capital Area Transportation System, from the Department of Transportation and Development, from the Center for Planning Excellence, and from the Capital Region Planning Commission. A lot of the representatives from those groups are present with us now, and I would like to thank them for your support. Thank you very much. Okay, April 20th this year, DOTD put in a second ferry in service in the evening rush hours between Plaquemine and St. Gabriel. I'd like to recognize Dennis Decker, Assistant Secretary, Office of Multimodal Planning, for hosting all of our working group meetings and for his efforts in making this additional ferry a reality. I would also like to thank Secretary Labat and their team as well. Thank you all very much. I'd also like to think that our little working group had a bit of influence on accelerating the planned improvements on Highway 30 from Ashland Road to I-10. It's a great little project, but there was concern about the design of the interchanges, and DOTD had narrowed them down to 3, and the project was a little bogged down in making a decision on which one of those types of designs that they would go with. And I graciously they split the project out so that the improvements that are common to all of the interchange options could move forward. And that process was approved in December of last year, and that's a 2-year project, which I hope is starting to roll to widen I-30 from Ashland Road to I-10 and some other improvements. So thank you very much. Most recently, GBRIA has contracted with Desiree Lemoyne of the TJC Group to help members walk through implementation of the Green Ride program, which includes car and van pooling, park and ride programs for employees and contractors. I'm asking that when Desiree calls, you make time for her, meet with her, and JT Sukist from CRPC, who will walk you through the details of how to set up a Green Ride program. You can use payroll tax credits to pay your employees to use public transportation and receive basically payment from the federal government for doing so. So it's a win-win, gets cars off the road, and also does it for little or no cost to the employers. You'd think traffic was the only thing we've been doing, but it's not. In addition to traffic and infrastructure group, GBRIA continues to maintain its many committee activities where we're helping members improve safety, steer education efforts, and push out positive messages to the community. The app, which many of you downloaded today, is a great example of that. When you get questions from friends, family, or coworkers about careers and industry, that app is a great resource. Another effort underway at GBRIA is the Community Awareness and Emergency Response, or CARE effort. GBRIA has hosted a number of meetings over the past year, and new communications pathways have formed that cross parish lines. In the case of an emergency, there will be greater collaboration and awareness between industry plants and their neighbors, regardless of which side of the parish line those plants are on. We're also working to improve communications with other entities such as schools and hospitals. Overall, members continue to bring forth new ideas and needs to work on for the organization, and the work of the association continues to help meet the founder's goal, which is to remain competitive.
Members and guests, we will now continue with today's program, so please help me welcome Sherry Labat as our keynote speaker. Sherry Labat was appointed as Secretary of the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development in February 2010 by Governor Bobby Jindal. She is responsible for a more than $1.7 billion annual budget and more than 4,200 employees across the state. During her tenure, Louisiana has invested in major corridor improvement projects across the state and has successfully obligated more than $2 billion in state surplus federal recovery and emergency relief funds. Labat is a professional civil engineer with more than 29 years in state service in Louisiana, working at DOTD as well as the Division of his administration. In addition to serving as secretary, Labat has held several other high-level positions within the department and has served as project manager on numerous projects at DOTD. Labat holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Louisiana State University, graduating in 1985, and has held a professional engineer's license in both civil and environmental engineering since 1990. She has twice received the DOTD Secretary's Award of Excellence, DOTD's highest employee award, and was inducted into the LSU Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering Hall of Distinction in 2011. Labat is involved in the local community through her multiple volunteer positions and memberships in trade associations. Labat has 3 sons, Andrew, Patrick, and Michael. Please help me welcome Secretary Labat.
How is everybody doing today? Good? Good. At least we don't have any rain and a beautiful view. I too want to mention I have 2 employees here from DOTD. Dennis Decker is the Assistant Secretary for Multimodal Transportation, and his assistant is Phil Jones. So thank you for coming and putting the display out front. So thank you. And thank you for having me today. You know, it was during the French Revolution, some citizens had a priest and a drunk and an engineer, and they were taking them to the guillotine. And so they took the priest there, and they said, do you want to face up or do you want to face down? And he says, well, you know, I want to look and see my maker, so I'll face up. So they released the blade, and it comes speeding down, and it stops 4 inches from the priest, and they said, divine intervention, you're free to go. So then the drunk, he came, and he's like, well, pretty good. They said, you want to face up or down? He's like, well, shoot, I'm going to do what the priest did. I'll face up. So they put him down. He's there. They release the blade. It comes speeding down 4 inches above his head. And they said, divine intervention again. So they let him go. So then they had the engineer, and he thought, well, I'll face upward too. Why not? They release the blade. It comes speeding down. It stops, and he says, ha, I see your problem. So, anyway, I love engineer jokes. I guess that, you know, engineers get made fun of quite a bit. So today I'm going to talk about traffic and infrastructure improvements in and around the area, and some plans that we have ongoing, and talk too about, you know, groups such as this can make a difference in transportation and improving transportation throughout an area. And we look at you all as partners with us and trying to get transportation solutions done. And why is that? Because you're the taxpayers out there. You're supporting these efforts, and all of these efforts take money. So with that, I'm going to talk about our responsibilities, our revenues, expenditures, funding, accomplishments, capital area investments, capital region mega projects, mitigating congestion, and planning for our future. First, just to give you a scope of our responsibilities, we have about 60,000 miles of highways within the state. 16,000, a little over 16,000 are state highway miles. 16,655. 931 miles of interstate. We have 12,000 plus bridges, the majority state-owned, but many are locally owned. Scope of responsibilities also include $20 million out of the TTF fund, the 16-cent gas tax that you pay per gallon, helps fund port projects. $20 million a year goes to that. We administer those funds. The aviation, there's an aviation fuel tax, and that goes to match federal aviation funds, and we administer those funds. And then we work with railroads. We do have money that goes to improve railroad crossing, safety, the arms. We work with the railroad companies on projects such as that. And then we have public transit. We receive some federal transit funding, and we work mainly with the rural communities with, you've probably seen the transit buses for Council on Aging and so forth. And then public works, we work with the northern levee districts. The southern levee districts are now part of the CPRA, the Coastal Protection Agency. And then there's numerous locks and dams and other public works type projects or infrastructure across the state. We also, operations, you could see how many acres mowed annually. We mainly partner, we do mow some with our employees, but we mainly partner and pay the Metro Plan, the entities, parishes, cities for mowing, and then we also have some private contractor mowing companies. 3,000 plus highway rail crossings, 3,000 traffic signals, traffic signs, and I mention those because like the traffic signs, we're always looking at those to make sure that you can see them at night. So the same with striping. So constantly looking at that, monitoring that, replacing that. I want to talk about, I'm going to call it our mini little hurricane that we had, April 27th. That was quite a storm that we had within this area. And just to give you another idea of what we do at DOTD, you can see the number of trees that had to be removed. You could, and I don't know if you can see from the pictures here, but when these limbs and trees, this was, a lot of these are taken on Nicholson Drive, but they pull down the overhead wires with them, so we have to wait until the lines are de-energized before our crews can get in there to clear trees. So sometimes if you're wondering, why is it taking so long? Well, we want to make sure that it's safe for our employees to get in there and remove the trees because of all the downed wires. We have some beautiful trees in Louisiana. You can see the wires here, but when we have a storm such as that, it wreaks havoc, doesn't it, on our area and impedes the movement of traffic. So our workers, our employees are out there helping clear the roads. Same with ice storms, and then when we have a real hurricane, they're out there working for you. Most of our employees of the 4,200 are out in the districts. We have 9 districts throughout the state, and they're actually on the ground working on our highways. Our revenue this year, $1.7 billion. Where does that money come from? You can see the federal tax or the money right there. That's 18.4 cents you pay per gallon when you go to the gas station. And the state TTF, 16 cents per gallon. It's not a percent. It was passed in 1984, and it has stayed relatively flat. Why is that? People may not be driving as much, or really mainly because more fuel efficient cars. So the less gas you need or alternative fuels, then we don't have as much money going into the taxes for transportation. So that was passed in 1984, 16 cents. The buying power is 7 cents or a little under if you take into account inflation. You also pay another 4 cents per gallon that went to the time program. This was bonded out. It'll be paid off, I believe, in 2045. The 4-cent gas tax paid for a lot of 4-laning of our routes throughout the state, 165, 167, the Audubon Bridge, widening the Huey P. Long Bridge, $1.2 billion project to widen the Huey P. Long Bridge. So we've completed all of that. We've spent that. We have one left under construction. It's the Fort Bulow Bridge in Alexandria. And then 2 projects didn't fit within the funding, but we're committed. DOTD's committed to it, also committed legislatively, and that is the Florida Avenue project down in St. Bernard Parish, and then what I call I-12 to Bush. It's a project in St. Tammany Parish. So we're funding those 2 projects and trying to work to fit it within the current funding that we have with regular and state TTF funds. Bond funds, this is through House Bill 2. This is the legislators' work to put money in there for transportation, and we're always so appreciative of that. It's a legislative process, and we work with the legislators as they try to get projects or money in there for projects. We have some self-generated, that's ferries, tolls, the tolls down on LA1. We are a zero general fund agency, and that is very important. We do not receive any general funds, and then we have a little bit of interagency transfers. So how do we spend that? As you can see, with capital outlay, engineering, construction, most of this is for construction. We use our state funds to match the federal dollars, and then our operating budget, $580 million. We've kept that relatively constant, really, since I became secretary. Our goal is to find efficiencies. It's increased a little bit because healthcare costs and so forth, but we have continuously downsized DOTD. When I started in 1985, there's around 7,200 employees, and now we're under 4,200. So what does that mean? The work still has to get done, so we contract a lot out. Debt service, again, that's the paying off those time bonds, and also the bonds that we sold for the NFA routes. Capital outlay, non-highways, this is the ports, airports, transit. Non-dedicated, you've probably read a lot in the paper about this. That's where the state police, about $70 million of money to state police was taken out this year to go to state police. And then this also includes the parish transportation trust fund. So funding streams to supplement the gas tax. I've talked about this, just to go over them again. Dedicated the auto registration fees to TTF. Dedicated this registration fee to the Highway Improvement Fund. And then there was $15 million legislatively passed of the unclaimed property funds to go on I-49 corridor, half of it to I-49 North and half of it to I-49 South. And actually, we ended up bonding that out. We have one more bond sale this summer in July for I-49 South. And that generated about $90 million for I-49 North. That's how we're able to do that last piece on I-49 North, the I-220, I-49 interchange. And then a project that we just opened the proposals on for the LA 318 US 90 interchange on I-49 South. So accomplishments, we've spent more than $7 billion now on transportation since 2008. $1.4 billion of that surplus 2007, 8, and 9. And one thing we're very proud of at DOTD is we obligate all our federal funding. We get a set amount of federal funding, but every year if we successfully obligate all that money, then we're able to submit to the federal government And states that don't obligate all their federal money, they redistribute it to states that did obligate all their federal money. And we are able to get that. In fact, 13 years in a row now, we've received additional federal money. The Federal Highway Trust Fund, it remains flat too. It actually expires in May 2015, and I know Congressman Graves, since you're here representing us, and Garrett and I just had a conversation the other day, this most likely will be extended. That's what they've been doing, is just doing these extensions, but we really need a new federal highway bill. So we hope and we're optimistic that one day we will, but right now it's just an extension. Now, even though the bill is set to expire in May, we have not stopped our lettings. We're going to continue to let projects unless the federal government just does not fix this, but we do anticipate that that will be extended. I'm hearing it'll be extended to the end of the year, end of December, and then I guess maybe they'll do another extension. But as you can imagine, it's very hard to plan on our end when there's uncertainty in the federal funds and that the program keeps expiring and we don't have a long-term federal plan. This fiscal year's investment, so what does that mean? 166 projects have been or scheduled to be let, 553 miles of roadway improvements, 38 bridge repair or replacement projects. Since 2008, $453 million invested right here in the capital area, 89 projects, 427 miles of roadway improvement. Projects underway, the US 190 Mississippi River Bridge, it's not only painting, but it's structural repair too. If you looked at some of the pictures, we were constantly monitoring that bridge, you would know why it needed to be structurally repaired. So it's being structurally repaired and also painted. And actually, some of the money, that additional federal dollars that we received, not this past year, I believe it was the year before, but we put that money towards that project. And we reached an agreement with the railroad company finally, telling them, look, we've got to do something with this bridge, showing them pictures, and they finally came to the table. We worked out a deal. The railroad is responsible for the approaches, paying for all the repairs and painting of the approaches, and then we have a cost share agreement for the part where we have the road and the bridge, the railroad, and it was quite interesting because we had to go back to these agreements and read through what people thought the cost share was and how they lined it all out. It was like, I want to say back in the 1930s or 40s or something. So now we have a new agreement with the railroad company. But that was interesting going back in time. The I-10 Mississippi River Bridge cleaning and painting, we're doing some spot painting and repair on that I-10 bridge, the new bridge, or the Horace Wilkinson Bridge. And then the Essen Lane widening project, we're very excited about this project. We're trying something a little new here in that just the way we're phasing the project, because there's so many utilities, as you can imagine, along this corridor. So we've worked with the city parish of Baton Rouge, and they have the improvements to the I-10 project, Essen, that they've let. And then we let the bridge widening, that bridge over there by the Burden Research Center. And that contractor has the responsibility of working with the utility companies for moving traffic over, striping, signing, as we relocate the utilities, and that's going to take some time. After the utilities are relocated and the city parish's project has been completed to improve the I-10 Essen interchange, which, by the way, when that's completed, that will provide you some traffic relief on Essen. I've certainly had my share. I think it took me one day to get from Perkins Road to I-12, I think 45 minutes. It was unbelievable. So we all know the congestion we have on that corridor. But once the interchange completed, that should help move traffic. And then once the utilities are relocated, we'll let the roadway project and add a lane from Perkins towards I-10 in that direction. And then Essen should flow better after that. Go Wider, this has just been just an extremely successful project. It's a lot of projects in Go Wider, but you could see the parts that we've widened. I know it's made a tremendous difference in my mother's commute as she goes out to Denham Springs to watch her granddaughters out in Denham Springs. She used to tell me, well, they have something after school at 3:30, so I'm going to leave at 9 in the morning. I think if I leave at 9, I can get there in time. And I'm like, you do that, Mom. So now she's all excited. Now she doesn't have to leave at 9 in the morning. She can leave at a more reasonable time, closer to when the girls will be doing their functions at school. So she's very happy about that, I know that. But a lot of other people are too. In fact, I've received more thank yous on that than I think any project that I've ever been involved with in my career at DOTD. And, you know, your legislators, past and present, helped make that a reality. And it just a whole different funding sources, as you can see, which is what it takes to get a project done. You just can't rely on one funding source. But we had surplus money, federal stimulus money, capital outlay money, and this was a real priority of Governor Jindal too, and just thrilled to have been able to do the widening of I-10, I-12, not only here in the Baton Rouge area, but also New Orleans area and the Slidell area as well. So upcoming projects, the LA 30 intersection improvements. This is the project there at Nicholson and Brightside. I kept thinking we'd get that project let sooner, but we have had some right-of-way issues that we've had to work through. But that intersection, as you know, needs to be improved. So we're looking at a letting, if I'm remembering correctly, it's sometime this fall. LA 1 from LA 69 to LA 75, 410 bridge replacement. And then we're doing the US 61 overlay from Florida. And I saw that street and I'm like, where is that street? I had to Google it and look for it. I don't even know how to pronounce it. But anyway, that street and the downtown River Road, we all know it more as that, the downtown River Road. And we're actually working with the city parish of Baton Rouge on that. We've been working with them on road transfer projects where they take roads into their system and then they get credits for 40 years of maintenance credits, and we're able to go and do some improvements on the road. And we've really appreciated that partnership with the city parish of Baton Rouge. And I talked about Essen Lane already. The I-10 corridor study, we're excited that we started this study back up. This is just sorely needed, and I believe this group has been supporting this effort, and I just want to say, please support us as we move along with this project. And we want your input. We want your participation. And if you haven't taken the survey, www.i10br.com, please do so. So who has taken that survey? Raise your hand. All right. I did it too. Okay. Wait, not enough people. Look at all this whole side of the room is not taking that survey. Please take that survey. Let me tell you again. Okay, www.i10br.com. It's very easy to do. It'll take about 5 minutes of your time. We need your input into this study. We anticipate going out in August with our first public meeting. We're going to show some concepts. Those are not etched in stones. It's stone. It's just for you to start having a conversation and discussion about what can be done to improve the traffic flow from the bridge to the split. We've invested so much money now extending I-10 and I-12. We've got to come together and fix that corridor area coming off the bridge. So please come out, support us. Oh, and I even have the website survey on there. Take that survey, please. That would just be a huge, huge help. Some other projects that received money actually through the capital outlay. One is the bump. It received a cash line of credit and a non-cash line of credit, $1 million. I think it's like $1.5 million, something like that. And actually, we received an unsolicited PPP, public-private partnership. It's our first one. We've had legislation for a long time, public-private partnership legislation, whether it's solicited or unsolicited, but we've never received an unsolicited proposal. So we received our first one, and actually I say we received it, DOTD. It's actually LTA, which is a group chaired by either, it rotates, the head of either the Senate of Transportation, the Senate Chair of Transportation Committee, or the House Chair of Transportation Committee. Louisiana Transportation Authority is really the one, and we act on their behalf to bring information to the LTA. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes through the process. The estimated cost of that project is around $700 to $1 billion. The West Side Connector is another one that received a non-cash line of credit, which means you really can't do anything because you can't pay anybody to do a study. You have to wait till it becomes a cash line of credit, but I won't get into all the House 2 of how all that works. But this is a new roadway alignment from Port Allen to Paradis. I think I pronounced that right. It also includes a new Mississippi River Bridge, and you can see it's a very $1.7 billion. Going back to the I-10 widening project, one thing I forgot to talk about, our goal is to try to once we do that study, come up with some concepts to see if we can break it up into manageable funding pieces. I find we have more success, like the way we did I-49 North, where we broke it into 11 segments, and they were like, I don't know, 50 million here, 50 million there, instead of trying to do the whole thing at one time. Okay, some other projects. We're currently undergoing a feasibility study of the I-10 Highway 74 interchange. Funds have not been identified to do an environmental assessment. And that's one thing, I have some notes like this on the slides, because what I'm trying to show you is that we're moving forward with planning, trying to set projects up for the future, but the majority of these projects do not have construction money identified. Why? Because we just don't have enough in our regular federal and state dollars, state TTF dollars, to fund mega projects like this. It's going to have to come from another source of funding. And the construction part is the most expensive part. But you've got to go through the planning and design before you can get to construction. So as secretary, what I've been working on is getting projects ready, because I'm optimistic that our leaders will put more money in transportation in the future. So we at DOTD want to be ready for that. LA 70 to LA 22, that's another industrial corridor that's very important to the area. We're moving forward to widen that roadway to 4 lanes. Again, the pre-construction activities. I do not have money identified for construction. And again, our regular federal and state TTF dollars are going to preserve the infrastructure that we currently have in place. We have a $12 billion backlog of needs, and our infrastructure is aging, and we're spending our regular TTF, federal, and state money to preserve our existing system. The I-10 LA1 connector, we have our parish president here from West Baton Rouge Parish, and this is a project that he has been a real advocate for. It's to connect I-10 to 415 to LA1, includes a new bridge across the Intracoastal Canal, and again, construction dollars are needed. I do want to thank this group for working with us with the providing an additional ferry during the peak hours. We recognize the problem, just as you do, with getting people across the river. And we had to wait until one of our boats, our ferries, came out of the shop and then put it into place. But to do that, we had to have a net zero cost. And so we reduced the hours of operation on the weekends. And I've I've received positive feedback on this, and I just want to commend you all for the hard work that you did, and I think it's really made a difference. And Dennis, thank you for your leadership with this team in working forward to get that done. We're also putting on some overhead signs, pavement markings to try to, improve the weaving so perhaps people can tell which lane to get in easier. And then the new Mississippi River Bridge study. I'm very excited about this. Karen St. Germain, she's our chair of the House Transportation, passed a resolution last spring, and this project's been on our statewide transportation plan. We have priority A being the highest, B, C, D, and when we do receive additional funding, such as surplus or stimulus or capital outlay money, we look at our statewide transportation plans for projects to fund. So we do have a master plan of projects that need to get done. So this new bridge study is going to examine 5 potential crossing locations, and it will connect LA 30 to LA 1. Again, the feasibility is the first step, and we're moving forward with that feasibility study. It should be completed by summer of 2016. Intercoastal bridge replacement, it's currently in preliminary design. Our letting date, July 2020. Again, it's mainly it's a funding issue, trying to fit that into the revenue that we have at this time. So I talked a little bit about the statewide transportation plan. It was completed in 2003. It covers all modes of transportation. It's what you look at for the future, and it's focused on economic growth. And just to let you know, we get people from all over to come and work in teams on this transportation plan. It's not just DOTD employees, and it's a huge effort, and then it goes through tiers of review. And right now we're at the review with the policy committee that's made up of, I'm on it, the head of economic development's on it, legislators are on it, and we're working to finalize the statewide transportation plan, and we hope to have it finalized in the fall of 2015. I want to go a little bit in talking about LA 30. That's another project that this group really, some of you came out and said, hey, let's relook at LA 30. We relooked at LA 30. I think we have a great plan and timelines. We're working on doing the survey for that additional lane from Ashland to the interchange. We hope to let that project November, December of 2016 is when we anticipate letting that project. We're going to put a turn lane off of LA 30 onto Veterans, and then we're still studying the interchange and what to do there. So I made a commitment to the mayor. We would look at short-term improvements, look at this again, and we had allocated money for roundabouts. He was concerned about losing that money for the roundabouts, and I told him, I said, look, let's relook at this. I'll make good on that money. I think it was like $8 million, and whatever comes out of the study, short-term improvements, we'll use that money to help fund that up to $8 million. So that's how we're funding that additional lane, the turn lane, and then, but we're still looking long-term. What do we need to do for that corridor? What do we need to do for that interchange? And we'll continue we have a traffic engineer looking at that, ways to improve that, and then we'll have to have a discussion on, okay, let's look at these options for improving that, and then we'll have to decide how are we going to proceed. Again, it's going to get to an issue where we need money for construction of whatever it is that comes out of the traffic study. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're doing at DOTD, what our plans are. From a Baton Rouge native perspective, because I've lived here since I was 6 years old, but I'm thrilled that we've been able to expand I-12, I-10. We've got to look for solutions for traffic congestion here in the Baton Rouge area. And I want to give a shout out to the City Parish of Baton Rouge. I think the Green Light project program has been a tremendous success, and we work really well with the City Parish of Baton Rouge. Like I said, we're working on some road transfer ideas and ideas to help improve flow. But I was asked yesterday, I was at a meeting in actually Lafayette, talking about I-49 South, and they're like, how can we get I-49 South done? And the success that I've seen when people are able to get something done for a region is when they all come together and they don't change priorities when there's an administration change. They come up with a plan, they say, this is what we're going to do. They focus on a project, they get it done, and they move on. And I'm going to tell you an area that's done that successfully, and that's Shreveport. Shreveport, the people come together there, they focus on a project, they get it done, and then they move to another. And when there's an administration change, they don't change their priority. They stay focused. And if you go to Shreveport, you'll see, I mean, that's how they got I-49 North done. And I think in other areas, people change, or the powers that be change what their priorities are, and so then you don't get anything done. So my advice to you guys, if you're going to be a voice, if you're going to be a part of this, is to come together, figure out which project, and certainly I can give you my opinion, which project is the one that we need to really work to move forward with, and then you stay with that, and you don't keep changing. So that was my advice to them, my advice to you, and it's just an honor to be here to speak to you all. And
Next, we're going to move on to our next section of the agenda. We have an industry, transportation, and infrastructure issues panel discussion. And thank you again, Secretary LaBaugh. So we have 3 panelists. Each of these GBRIA member plants has a combined company and contract workforce of over 1,500, and each of these sites has a construction project going on now or is considering or planning future projects. Our panelists are Stacy Chasson with the Dow Chemical Company, Kevin Hardy with Shell Chemical, and Kevin McCarroll with BASF. So I'm just going to give you a little introduction on each and then ask them to come up. So Stacy Chasson serves as Director of Public Affairs for the Dow Chemical Company in Louisiana. Stacy joined Dow in 2006 as Community Relations Manager for Louisiana Operations in Plaquemine, Dow's 3rd largest site in the world. Prior to joining Dow, she was Executive Director of Career Builders, a nonprofit with a $1.5 million budget focused on workforce development and school-to-work activities. Chasson started her career as a high school business teacher in Iberville Parish and has experience working in the Louisiana legislature, at LSU as a human resource development research assistant, and in private business as a performance improvement consultant. Stacy attends Household of Faith Church and is very proud mother of Jackson Chasson, who is a 1st grader at Faith Academy. Stacy is a member of the Rotary Club of Baton Rouge and an avid sports fan. Stacy says you can find her somewhere between the Hive in New Orleans, where she roots for the Hornets, Tiger Stadium, where she doesn't believe in leaving a game early, or on the T-ball fields at the YMCA in Baton Rouge cheering on her son Jackson. Next, Kevin Hardy is the Site Communications and Social Performance Manager at Shell Chemical. He has been in his role at Geismar since March of 2014. Kevin went to work for Shell in August of 2008 as Communications Manager at the Motiva Convent Refinery. Prior to his tenure at Shell Motiva, he held Communications External Affairs positions at Citgo Petroleum 9 years and for the Louisiana Board of Regents for 6 years. Kevin is a Baton Rouge native, is married, and he and his wife have 2 sons. And he's told me he likes to take walks on the beach, but I think he was joking. Kevin. Kevin McCarroll is the Operations Director at BASF. He is a native of New Orleans, Louisiana. Kevin has a bachelor's degree in science and chemical engineering from LSU. Over his professional career, he started out in 1983 as a plant operator for Ciba Geigy in St. Gabriel and then moved to positions as process and production engineer. He then moved to BASF, where he became an operations supervisor, superintendent, and operations manager. In 2004, Kevin became analytical services manager at BASF, and in 2008 became the operations director, where he currently serves. Kevin has responsibility for the manufacturing services on the Geismar site, which includes power generation and distribution, waste treatment, steam production, logistics, and laboratories. He also has responsibility for ethylene oxide, surfactants, and fuel additives manufacturing, producing a range of products used in detergents, urethane foams, chemical intermediates, and plastics. Okay, I will ask the panelists just 2 questions. So I'm going to ask y'all to come on up. All right, folks. First of all, the first question we'd like to explore with you are just to please share with us the issues that your plant's logistics, employees, or contractors, or any others affected have been experiencing as a result of the overall increased traffic congestion around our region. So just looking for some concrete problems, issues. So whoever wants to go first. Stacy?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. When I saw these questions that Connie was going to ask, I said I definitely did not want to be the queen of the obvious in this discussion. And I think that all of us understand the traffic challenges. Either we're sitting on the west side, or we're sitting down in Geismar, or we're sitting in the middle of Baton Rouge. So I think we get it from a workforce development or retention and attraction perspective. I will tell you it's difficult. We all want to work on the things we can control. And so we all work on pay and benefits, and we all work on the work environment side, but you can't control the traffic, it seems like. And so although we're doing well at Dow with retention, the ones that we are losing when they come in for their exit interview and they say they just can't sit in traffic 3 hours a day for a work commute, you hate to lose those people. And so I see industry nodding their heads. And I don't think that we're any different than our contract partners. We're all traveling across 2, 3, sometimes 4 parishes at a time to get back and forth to work and school and wherever we're going. So from a workforce standpoint, that's the issue. I do want to talk about logistics. So our growth project right now at Dow that's going on is about a $1.1 billion project. And part of that project is building 2 new polyethylene plants. And so we right now see about 35,000 trucks annually with polyethylene. With that growth project, we are expecting to put another 25,000 trucks on the road. And that's by 2017. What I do want to make the point of here is that this isn't, the traffic congestion that we're seeing is not because of our growth, okay? Secretary LaValle was here. I mean, we have studies that date back to 1986 that we needed another bridge and we needed more infrastructure. And so the growth is great. And so what I want us to do as a group, as an industry consortium, is use that growth as motivation to all pull together to solve this problem, because as you see, I don't think one entity is going to solve it. But I did want to give you an idea that we're going to see a 50% increase in truck traffic. And that's not only getting them out of the plant, but that's getting them in the plant. And when you think about our economy, you know, what keeps us competitive as an industry? It's the price of raw material, but it's logistics. It's can we get the product in and out of our facilities? So that's extremely important. And I'll stop there.
You know, the message I hear from our employees and contractors is really 2 things. One is around safety, and the second thing is around the time they spend on the road every day. Some pretty obvious things, but, you know, it is big things. It's things that's important to everybody, that everybody in this room and our employees. The things that we hear related to safety is really around Highway 30 for us. And some of the challenges that are created there since made into 3-lane, people traveling down the center lane. And I'm happy to say that Sherry and her organization have done some work on that, have made it a little bit better. But, you know, there's still a lot of people out there driving it, find other ways to circumvent some of the safety features put in place, like driving around pedestals. But I think until we get to the point where there's other routes and the traffic is really reduced in the area, people will find ways to circumvent the measures that are in place. Second thing we hear is, you know, it is the obvious, but people, you know, spend too much time on the road coming and going to work. You know, I know several stories of people that their routine now is on the way to work, I stop, pick up a biscuit, pick up a paper, I get there an hour and a half early, read the paper in the parking lot, go to work. End of the day, I got an hour commute going home. We're focused at BSF on really trying to create a better work-life balance. It creates a lot of headwinds in trying to create work-life balance when people are spending 2 or 3 hours a day every day on the road. For us, we've looked at a lot of different options, staggering shifts, busing people in from other locations. There's a little bit of impact you can make, but they all have their limitations. You look at shift schedules. Yeah, we've done a little bit. Wintertime, there's only so many daylight hours, so there's only so much you can do with that. We're still looking at remote parking type options. I think one of the things we really need to think about as we and our neighbors look at that, we can't just move people to down 30. We got to get the traffic off of 30 itself. So put it somewhere else. But that's really kind of the two big themes there. I will say I've been in a lot of different meetings with a lot of entities, and I'm really encouraged about the new crisis coalition that's going into place. I think it's finally an effort to bring all parties together and give us one voice so we can have an influence and make some changes, because it's not going to get better, and there's only limited things that we can do on our own.
I will say that at Shell, we've been at something of a remove from the acute issue, at least in terms of employees getting in and out of our place. We have not been undergoing any expansion. We hope that that'll change in the near future, but to this point, we have not been fortunate enough to add to the problem, as it were. But I will say that as we consider expansion very seriously, and we do have a significant capital project that's under review. We're making plans right now. You don't start planning for a project after it receives final approval. You guys understand, but. As we've seen what BASF and Methanex and some of our sister facilities have dealt with in terms of handling, the volume of the army of contract personnel coming in and out, whether it be for a large turnaround or for a brand new plant in the case of Methanex, we've been acutely aware that this is something that we really have to integrate into our planning. As we look at our expansion, and I'll have to say that our employees have been impacted. I myself have been impacted. It takes me a lot longer to get to work than I would certainly like for it to. Our employees have kind of self-medicated. That is to say, we've kind of let their schedules are a little more flexible. That is, staff employees. But I think it's really been sort of an eye-opener for us as we see what's going on, and we recognize that at some point we're going to begin to have to conduct similar take similar measures. It's been very, very instructional or instructive for us, and so one thing that we have really paid attention to, you may or may not be aware that Motiva is a Shell joint venture with Saudi Aramco, and I mention that only because a couple of years ago the Motiva refinery in Port Arthur underwent a significant expansion. They essentially built a new refinery next to an old refinery and combined them. At one point, they had, I think, 14,000 contract employees at peak production. As you can imagine, they had problems that probably eclipsed what we've dealt with. So we're looking forward to really taking advantage of that experience, really drawing some of those people into our discussions to really figure out, because frankly they tried a lot of things to deal with the issue, things that have been mentioned up here already, some more successful than others. So we're hoping that that experience can really inform our plans as we move forward. But I will say, even though we have not been directly involved in having to deal with the issue at our site, we have felt the pain, and we certainly recognize, and there are costs associated with it. I mean, if you have contractors who don't like sitting in traffic for hours, it's going to be harder to get qualified people working on your project. So it's a safety issue, it's a business issue, it's a do the right thing issue, quite frankly.
So what do you all plan to do in other regions of the world, like in Germany or Texas, other places where they have had large projects and large workforces. Can we learn something from over there? So that's a good point as well. So our next question is basically, so what are some of the things that your plant has done or plans to do to mitigate or help with traffic congestion? And some of you covered it a little bit, but perhaps we can expound on that a little bit more.
We've looked at several different things, and I remember getting hit with this in the West Baton Rouge Chamber meeting. I think Pee Wee was there. But, as I mentioned earlier, this isn't an industry problem. Industry didn't cause this, but I think this is a great opportunity for us to pull together. Our contract workforce, which in Plaquemine, we have about 3,500 people a day. 1,500 is Dow, and the other 2,000 is contractor. How many of you live on the west side or travel over there? I see my friend Curtis over there. Anyway, so our contractors for quite some time have been doing 410s, so Monday through Thursday. Has anybody tried to get across the bridge on a Friday? That's the absolute worst day to get across the bridge. So what's interesting to me is, although we've done some of these things, whether it's our engineers working remotely at times, or technology at home, or flexible work schedules with our contract partners, et cetera, the fact remains that we do need additional infrastructure, and we really need connectivity. And even our folks like Parish President Berthelot, who's very progressive in his thinking with the 415 connector, I think it's even bigger than just local infrastructure. I think that our local parish presidents are doing the best they can with what they have. But again, we are all traveling across parish lines every day for basic needs and what we do. And so I think we have to think about this regionally, because that's how we're living life regionally, and we have to do it even super regionally. I mean, when I think about how Dow operates our large facility in Plaquemine and our large facility in St. Charles, there has to be connectivity. And so if we're not thinking about how we're connecting these loops and bridges, like Pee Wee's point, if we build a bridge and we dump them right back out on 30, what have we done? Nothing. So we have, but that's something I'm not seeing. So again, to Kevin's point, I am very hopeful and excited about the Crisis Coalition. I hope you visited with them while you were here. I want to plug them again, because for the first time, we are going to come up with a regional plan. And I know you probably are as frustrated as I am when you sit up here and you listen to plans without funding. And so I'm going to steal Eduardo's words here. We could get paralyzed by the no funding piece. Okay, that could stop us dead in our tracks and not develop the plan. And so I think what's important with the Crisis Coalition, and you're a part of that, is it has to be going on simultaneously. We have to develop a regional plan, not a local plan, a regional plan, and no matter where our facilities sit, we have to be in agreement that we're going to go with the data-driven regional plan. And at the same time, we've got to go help the state, our legislators, our congressmen, our new governor develop a funding structure that works, because what we have is not working, and we need leadership at the state level to figure out this funding structure.
As a company, we have and are doing a lot of similar things. I'd say we're more flexible than ever before on people's work schedules and hours, right? There's only so many things you can do. That is a pretty simple concept, but I think we do about all we can there. Similar to you guys, we work 410s. To me, the next opportunity there is you got to get the cars off the road. As a culture, everybody likes to have their own vehicle, right? I'm the same way. I want to have mine, and we got to get in a mode where, it's easier for people to use transportation, move them to a parking lot and bring them in by bus, get them off of Highway 30. So we are looking at ideas like that going forward. We did have a meeting a couple weeks ago about the Green Ride program. We're interested, and we're seriously thinking about implementing that at our plant site. Looking at our logistics provider right next to our facility, they move between our site and they move 25,000 plus trucks. What's worked pretty well for us is we don't move a lot of trucks during those high volume periods, and what we work with them on to end their work day a little earlier. So they're done by 3, so whenever you see those big peaks that coming into the day, they're not part of it. So, it's a lot of little things, a lot of simple things. It becomes much more difficult to think of those really innovative things that we can do without having the infrastructure in place.
Of course, Shell shares the same commitment to the larger solutions, to the longer term solutions, to the very structural solutions that are needed. In the meantime, I think the two I guess marching words will have to be, I guess I'll just leave that there this time. Hasn't done me much good so far. But I think flexibility, and we've really, and similar at Shell, we really have realized that being flexible in schedules is going to be very important, and we plan to, continue that on into to our expansion. God willing, and the creek don't rise. But and the other thing is communication. I think, a big part of any expansion project, you've got heavy hauls, you've got lifts over battery, you've got a lot of things that can happen that can really make the problem even worse, at least acutely at given times. And so our goal is to really anticipate those things. And I think, again, flexibility and communication will be the primary things we can do in the short term. I don't think we'll solve the problem in the short term, but we can certainly ameliorate it, and we'll do everything we can and are planning to do that.
All righty, next up on our agenda, I'd like to introduce Scott Kirkpatrick, the Program Manager of Crisis. Scott works out of Rodell Parsons' Baton Rouge office, where he's a lobbyist on state issues. Amongst other clients, Mr. Kirkpatrick represents Association of Levee Boards of Louisiana, American Traffic Solutions, Louisiana Notary Association, and serves as the Executive Director of the Coast Builders Coalition. Previously, Scott spent nearly 5 years working with the Washington, D.C.-based consulting firm, the Cypress Group. In addition to his government relations work with the firm, he was part of a team that procured and executed on a $78 million federal housing contract through the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the state of Louisiana. Prior experience includes working in Louisiana Governor Kathleen Blanco's office as a policy advisor for natural resources, environment, and transportation, serving in the Special Projects Office of former U.S. Senator John Breaux, and as a legislative assistant for health care, judiciary, and financial services for former U.S. Congressman Richard Baker in Washington, D.C. Scott received his BA in Government and Religious Studies from the University of Virginia and his JD from Louisiana State University. He and his wife, Heather, have 2 daughters, Laura, Jane, and Virginia, and 1 son, Christopher. You're busy. Scott, come on up.
Very good. Well, look, thank y'all very much. I really appreciate this opportunity to address y'all. And let me tell you, I'm very excited about the opportunity with Crisis. If you look up here, we've certainly heard a number of the challenges. We feel the challenges daily in Baton Rouge. You look at this figure, the second highest roadway congestion of any mid-sized city in the United States, and you say, yeah, okay, I'm not just dreaming. This is truly a problem. It's backed up by data. What I see daily is not just me, it's happening to people all across the capital region. And so while there has been a lot of positive things that have happened in Baton Rouge over the past 10, 20 years, I think our level of growth, let's say, has not kept pace with the transportation improvements that have led us to this challenge. And as it's great to hear from some of the plants about the logistics they're dealing with. I only hope I can live up to Stacy's pitch about Crisis. But it obviously, these are a couple figures that tell you about the challenges that you and your workforce and your contractors are facing. 42 hours on average. People are sitting in traffic around Baton Rouge. A real cost. Not just in just sitting in that car, burning those hours, but a cost in vehicle, the vehicle cost, additional fuel costs, etc. So these are things that are again near and dear to y'all, near and dear to your employees, near and dear to your, and many, we work beyond plants. It's near and dear to customers. So knowing we've established this challenge. it's great to come behind Sherry. There's a lot of kind of information I know she laid on you. There's some kind of fundamental challenges we face as it relates to getting to that next step. How do we really impact these transportation challenges? How do we accelerate what we need? And a few challenges we've identified as we've come together. This first piece, there is a significant diversion of transportation trust fund dollars, and most specifically to state police, which is a wonderful organization. I think the hope is, though, that they can find other ways of funding themselves and eventually. So that is a bit of a challenge to our underlying fundamental funding structure. When you think about, hey, okay, so how, if let's say we get a few tens of millions here, tens of millions there, just how much does it really take to kind of make a dent in some of these projects? You see that that there are really two basic areas here. We got a backlog that just speaks to kind of the maintenance and upgrades that we need, sitting at $12.3 billion. That is a tremendous number, and it's even more challenging that 44% of that backlog is here in the greater Baton Rouge area. And I'm going to speak to why we want to do a regional effort, but if there's anything that speaks to it, it says, hey, why in the world are we disproportionately impacted? Why have we maybe missed out in the past in our share of transportation dollars? I think there are a few things to it, but I think the point I want to make to you is we don't want to be there in the future. We want to be unique in how this region tackles its transportation problems so that we don't look and say, wow, we've been disproportionately impacted. So that's a big piece for the kind of genesis of crisis and what we will hope to see in the future. Now, that the challenge is that's just maintenance and required upgrades. I mean, what most of us think about when we think about, hey, traffic improvements, our minds immediately go to some big projects, okay? And then that's when you're looking at this $6.7 billion number at the bottom. And so that can all be very intimidating. I think you eat the elephant one bite at a time, and that's going to be the approach we're going to take. But just know that this is a big, challenging problem. And I think you've gotten a sense for that throughout today. But this is the things that we're looking to tackle. And I think, again, as when we talk about solutions, they are certainly conceivable. But what we've seen, because of really this funding deficiency, almost a fundamental funding flaw in some ways, is that we're seeing the congestion measures increase in a negative way really each year. This problem is worsening, and thankfully for the great opportunity we have along the River Parishes corridor in this area, and the great planned expansions that are tremendous opportunities for this area, they also are giving us a sense that these probably will get a bit worse as we have new people coming in. Whether it be because you just have a construction project and have temporary workers coming, but also once those construction projects are finished and you have your permanent workers who are adding to your employee count. I mean, we've got people moving into the Baton Rouge area. It's thrilling, but it's also intimidating as we think about how do you add more people to the roadway. So this has come up. GBRIA is not unique in this rising to the top, okay? You go talk to hospitals and Walmart and retailers, they're having similar challenges. You'll see here at the bottom, I mean, the Baton Rouge Area Chamber has identified this for 7 of the past 8 years as a top obstacle to business growth. I mean, that's certainly not the kind of we don't want to see those challenges, and feel like if we can address them, we can create a better environment not only for the businesses here, but for bringing in other businesses in the future. And so that's really where we see an opportunity. And as it relates to addressing the crisis, many of you have seen and heard about GBRIA's interest in this issue, the plant's interest in this issue, and it's been thrilling to work with Connie and some of your plant managers on leadership team. GBRIA has been joined in a big way by the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, who again has been very challenged by these issues, and also by the Center for Planning Excellence. All of them were thinking about these challenges, frustrated, hopefully is the right word, by some of the lack of movement, and eager to find solutions. And so as these discussions kind of developed, it resulted in this idea behind the Crisis Coalition. And the thought was, if they could speak with one voice, if we could get the business community to speak in a very powerful and consistent way, that we could help drive improvements in the greater Baton Rouge area. So there are three areas I want you to keep in mind. You'll see this theme throughout this. At the state level, there really are opportunities for increased state funding. In fact, starting at 2 o'clock down at the state capitol on the House floor, they'll have a vote about a state infrastructure bank that would, in essence, enable large projects to borrow money from the state to get them going, and a couple votes dealing with fuel taxes. Second, at the regional level, and I love hearing some of this theme. Everybody's got their little route that they take. Most of us know the roads that we would like to particularly improve. The challenge for the capital region is thinking of this regionally, not parochially. And Sherry LaBalle, I think left us with a pretty powerful message as she talked about those local areas that maintain their focus on one or two projects are the ones that are most successful. And I think, venture to say, as I go around, most people feel like that is probably an area at times where Baton Rouge has fallen short. And our hope is, we've been very intentional about including businesses from the capital region in our process and in our leadership team, because we want whatever we're doing to be seen as a regional approach, because we think there's power there. There's power when a business from another parish comes to a meeting and say, you know what, this may not directly benefit me, but I'll tell you what, this is good for the region. That's powerful, and that's where we've been challenged at times. So we're going to work from a regional approach. We think that is a great input and addition we can make for DOTD, for the local MPO as they try to do some things. And as it relates to the MPO, there is a planning process in place now, and the parish presidents are very engaged in that, and the Capital Region Planning Committee. And there's really an opportunity for that business community to get involved in that in an even bigger way. And I think that would be very welcome, and I think could help take that MPO product to the next level, could help them identify those key economic development projects. So we're eager to work with the MPO and the elected officials on those things. I've mentioned kind of the groups involved to date. This up here, Baton Rouge Area Chamber, this lists a bit of what, it's an interesting mix that we have that I think makes a very powerful team as they come together and really bring some of their key leaders, the key leadership from their groups on board. So we hope this is very comprehensive in its approach. We've specifically kind of have a new entity, a different entity, Crisis, so that people say, well, that's I know that group, they kind of favor that, or that group kind of favors that, or how they, no, this is new, this is fresh, but it's business. It's business coming to the table from all walks of life, and we think we're going to be able to carry a powerful message because of that. So these are the three group kind of founding members, and I think they all bring a lot to the table. So again, I've talked about some of the themes. When you think about what are kind of some of the things we can see in the mission, supporting a regional data-driven project prioritization. We feel like since we are resource constrained, we've got to be smart about what we choose. We feel like there's going to be opportunities to raise revenue, but we're never going to have everything we need. And so it's working with the MPO, working with the parish presidents to get those best solutions on the table, so that when we come back and say, we used to be second worst mid-sized city in the nation for congestion. Now, we're thrilled that we're down to 25th because we've picked the best projects over the past, few years. So that's a big piece for us. Some of you may have heard that IBM came in. It helped with a bit of a transportation study, talked about some of the opportunities, if you get the data, how you can make even better transportation choices. So we're excited about that piece. Making sure the infrastructure develops in accordance with projected growth. Again, this is looking forward, thinking ahead, bringing business to the table to where y'all can talk about, hey, these are the needs I see coming. Make sure you help us prepare for this, because these are things we need in the future. We're not just worried about today, we're thinking about tomorrow. We want a plan that people can buy into, and getting people excited about that plan. I mean, you want to feel like when you're recruiting, when you're trying to, you can tell people, look, hey, this may not change tomorrow, but you know what, there's a great plan in place, and we're going to see improvements in this area. So that's a key piece. And then, like I said, the funding. The funding piece is challenging. What's good is there are a number of groups working on this. We really see an opportunity. I think you heard a little bit earlier, there's some federal opportunities. There hopefully in the next year or two have some changes with federal highway funding. With the state, this is a key piece. We really see, when you think about the window that we have right now, we've got legislative and gubernatorial elections up in the fall, where this is going to be a big issue for them, where they're going to be speaking to how they're going to address this issue. And Crisis is going to be right there telling them this is critical for the capital region. And so we're very hopeful that leads to some good solutions coming out of those elections. Secondly, you then have more elections, including the elections for the city of Baton Rouge, that following fall. So again, we're going to have an opportunity to, provide input and to encourage them to embrace some real transportation solutions. So it's an interesting window we're in here, and we're very hopeful that in the next few years we'll really see some improvements and advancements in these areas. So, why, just a little bit on why this is, we want a bit of a unique model, but because we've seen it in other places. I was actually sitting on the Louisiana Transportation Authority when the LA1 Coalition began its efforts about a decade ago seeking funding for the toll road. How many of you have gone on the toll road down to Fouchon? Fort Fouchon, yeah? I mean, it's obviously, some of you maybe for work, many of you, more of you probably for fishing or something like that. But they in essence, in that situation, you really had industry that was almost just directly impacted. They said, we can calculate the cost for us in not being able, the dangers of not being able to get out of here or get in here at times. And for that reason, we're putting together a coalition. We're going to have our people there all the time, looking for solutions, pressing on our leaders for funding. And they have had some significant success, particularly for being kind of on the end of the world down there. So this is a proven model forming this unique group, business-led group. We've also seen this in other places. Over the Mobile area has a similar effort going on now. Utah, other places are looking at this model. You may have heard even I-49 South has began a bit of this effort. I-49 North, Sherry mentioned that earlier. She talked about how focused they were up there. Well, they had a similar effort up there. They got them what they needed. So, when we look at the plan of action, I think when we do believe that we can get behind and get with the MPO and elected officials so that you have a good sense and we can advocate for good short-term, medium-term, and long-term solutions here. The GBRIA working group has been fantastic in finding some of those short-term solutions, and already making some progress there for y'all. I think we feel like there are more out there for the greater Baton Rouge area. And then we'll move to obviously some medium-term opportunities and long-term. I mean, a lot of people want to jump immediately to kind of the mega projects, and I think everybody's got different opinions on all that. But I mean, we do think that we've got to have a very smart, unified plan going forward about how we advance long-term projects in the Baton Rouge area. Capital Region area. Again, the second point, supporting the development of high-quality planning and prioritization standards. That's huge. Advocate for the implementation of data-driven planning. This is a very business-like approach from our perspective. And then obviously increasing funding sources. I talked about some things going on at the Capitol later today. Here are a few of the things we see as good initial targets for Crisis Coalition in the really remaining 4 weeks of the session. You've heard I talked about the diversion of Transportation Trust Fund dollars. We got to get those back in the Transportation Trust Fund. That's $70, $80, $90+ million a year that we can have going to transportation. So there's legislation there to kind of pull those funds back that we're supporting. Establishing the statewide infrastructure bank, again, that's up for a vote this afternoon, and Representative Karen St. Germain is pushing that. And very hopeful about that because that's going to give areas like Baton Rouge some options. We identify some big projects, we got options to fund them. So we're pushing that. And then also, Secretary LaBaugh talked about surplus funds that have been used in the past for transportation. Well, you never quite know when you'll get surplus funds, but when they do arise, there are 5 potential uses for those surplus funds. And in the past, sometimes transportation's gotten some, and at other times they haven't. And so there's legislation to make sure that transportation gets at least a 15% portion of those every time they come up. That's something we're supporting as well, along with the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. So we see, again, there's probably just about four more weeks here in the session. We see some positive things that can come out of this, a lot of momentum, really statewide for seeing some transportation improvements. So we're hopeful we can have some early success there, and then again take this effort into really the election cycle, where we're really going to be able to put some things in front of our elected, those on the campaign trail, and hopefully get them to buy in and to what can be done for the greater Baton Rouge region. So that's, I'll mention this too, we are very early in the game, but we already have our traffic crisis website up. Again, GBRIA has been a great partner. We're going to be staying in touch with Connie a whole lot, but I would encourage you all, we'll be sending, through GBRIA, be sending out information as we need really industry to whether it be come to a public meeting, respond to the I-10, survey, things like that ideally if you can get, your company and your employees involved in, we have a larger business presence on this issue. And that's really what we want to do. We want people to say, wow, business is really strong on this. I mean, I know I've got to respond to what crisis wants because I've got business people on the phone, emailing me, et cetera, telling me they need this for their business. And that's the kind of environment we want to create. So I look forward to kind of staying in touch with you.
All right, thank you so much, Scott. I'd also at this point like to just quickly thank our GBRIA staff, Sue Dodson, Andrew Mongrue, Trey Rivette, and Taylor Simon. And today is actually Taylor Simon's last day with us. He has been our research coordinator, has helped us completing with a lot of surveys, and we're going to miss him a lot. I'm looking for a replacement if anybody knows someone who can crunch numbers, make nice reports, make a lot of phone calls. Taylor has done a fantastic job with us. He is going on to get master's degree studies here at LSU, and so we wish him well. But thank you all staff. And next, John Pasillo is going to wrap up the meeting for us.
That's next on our list. Hey, we hear a lot about funding, and there's actually two areas I want to talk to you about funding. Mark, you stole my closing argument a little bit, but I may repeat it if you don't mind. But first, the GBRIA Board of Directors has approved voluntary assessment to our members in support of the Crisis Coalition. So GBRIA members are going to be getting an invoice from GBRIA based on the size of your plant, number of employees that you have. I hope you will pay that invoice. I hope you'll be even more generous than that invoice is going to ask you for in support of the Crisis Coalition, because we have made a commitment, your organization has made a commitment to help fund the crisis effort. So, and I hope you'll see that there's some quality behind that effort. The other point in closing, I guess, is the pay me now or pay me later argument that I just heard. And essentially, we're in the pay me later stage of that argument, where we're spending $1,052 a year for additional gasoline and additional automobile repairs and additional time sitting in our vehicles simply because we can't get where we're going in a reasonable amount of time. So you can pay me now with an additional revenue tax or whatever of $100 or $50 a year on gas and help fund some of these solutions, or you can continue to pay me later of $1,000 a year for additional gas to put in your vehicle to sit there. So yeah, revenue is going to be required. Crisis is going to be behind it. I don't know what the answer is, but a thought that maybe transportation should support itself across the state of Louisiana might not be a bad place to start. But within that, I realize we can't keep bleeding it off into other areas that are not transportation, because you won't get anybody to support that. So crisis is going to continue to work. I hope our members support it with your checkbooks and with your voice as we go forward. So unless there's anyone else that wants to shout something out, I'm going to call our annual meeting to a close.